Coming to you live from the Sound System Studios, Dallas, Texas.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I don't care if I never get...
Holy cow!
Baby water! Baby water!
Welcome to another week, another edition, week after Super Bowl Sunday edition, I guess you could call it that, of On Deck. I am your host, Josh Smith. Thanks for joining me. Certainly have to get into the Super Bowl, as I just aforementioned. It is the week after, a little bit long overdue. I'm sure most people have already their opinions on the Super Bowl, and certainly cannot discredit the ending of that game. Wow, we'll have to get into the Super Bowl. Let's just say we'll have to still talk about it. National Signing Day last week, a big day for college football fans. You think this early in the season how much bigger this has gotten over the years? The National Signing Day, the TV appearances that these kids do, putting the hats out in front of themselves, deciding which school they're going to. So we'll have to get into National Signing Day. Tiger Woods, y'all. Wow, a week after shooting 82, he withdraws from a tournament last weekend. I should say this weekend, so we'll have to get into Tiger Woods not finishing the tournament. Comes out Thursday, this last Thursday, and just not there. Wasn't showing any signs of this the week before, though. So we'll get into some Tiger Woods news. NBA, little hoops talk as well, which leads us to the end of the story of the week. As always, have to cap it with that. Usually kind of just tease it. I just have to mention it, though, today. Unfortunately, the passing of Dean Smith, will have to get into the man that was, the legend that created such great basketball minds and basketball players as well. Dean Smith, unfortunately, passes at the age of 83. Back to the Super Bowl. Let's go back to some great talk, though, some happy talk. Well, it was a snoozer, I have to say, in the first half. Kind of a slow first half, although the game was slow. The first half went by fast, though, if you get what I'm saying. There was a lot of running, a lot of 3 and out. So next thing you know, I was like, whoa, it's the second quarter? Really? It's already the second quarter? Well, it was the second quarter, and finally some action picks up at the end of the first half. And what an ending of the first half it was. I mean, as boring as it was at times, it certainly picked up there for the last 2 minutes. Here come the Pats. They come down. After all these 3 and outs, a lot of running the ball, they came down early in the game, and of course, Tom Brady throws an interception. Point being, it's 7-7 heading into the final 2 minutes, 2-minute warning of the first half. Well, there was a stat that I had to write down, a bunch of little factotums throughout the game, trying to keep track so I wouldn't have to go back through and watch it again. And one thing they did point out, and they showed this stat, they threw it up on the TV, the Pats were number 1 in the NFL, scored 66 points in the final 2 minutes of the first half. That's most in the NFL, most points in the NFL, the final 2 minutes of the first half. Well, lo and behold, what do? They go down. They use great, and I mean great clock management, great play calling from Josh McDaniels. Leaves 31 seconds on the board after the touchdown for the Seahawks. Well, you figure the Seahawks are just going to, we'll just run it, hey, we're only down a touchdown. That was a great drive by them. No. They're going to maybe get something out of it. Well, they're going to test it like every team does. Hey, we'll run a draw play, see if we catch them off guard, which the Seahawks do on the very first play of their drive. Get 15, 20 yards. They're almost up to midfield. Well, next thing you know, with the penalty involved, they're down to the 5-yard line, and the Pats looking to score, and they do. Right before the half, you have 2 touchdowns within 31, 32 seconds of each other. Right there, 2 touchdowns each team. Now it's 14-14 at half. And I'm thinking at the time, hey, that's huge for the Seahawks. They're going to come out. That's going to pay dividends. And I'll get into that, how it kind of does that pretty much for the most part. Heading into the second half, they kind of picked up momentum. Just as the Patriots looked as if they were going to have the momentum going into the halftime, the Seahawks picked it up. Then halftime performance, we'll have to give that around a 7, 8 out of 10. That was pretty good. It was decent. It was okay at times. She'd had a pretty good performance. Her singing quality, as in singing, her performance, bringing Missy was pretty sweet out. Bringing out Lenny was sweet. So she had... Of course, you got to bring out two names people hadn't really been thinking, especially Missy. That was who else you going to bring out? You knew she was going to bring out Lenny Kravitz. Everyone was kind of wondering if you didn't know if she was going to bring out Missy. That was kind of under the radar. Well, she bring out Missy, and it was a pretty cool performance. Commercials, sorry, got to mention that as well. Commercials, where were you? I was going to say the commercials that were, they were not. I was going to write down those as well, the ones I was going to laugh and remember and we could talk about. Well, not much to talk about there. Commercials weren't even there to lift you up in the part of the game, really in the first quarter and kind of halfway through the second quarter, where it was just not that fun of a game. It was kind of boring. It was old school football is what it reminded me of. Pound it, just old school football. Anyway, commercials, terrible, as Barkley would say. On to the second half. Well, Brady throws another pick early in the second half. After the Seahawks, they scored a field goal on their first drive, and then it was kind of slow for a while. And then what happened to really give the Seahawks the lead, and there really wasn't much after that, was Tom Brady threw an interception in the Seahawks territory. Well, I should say in their own territory, and they paid their own territory, so the Seahawks have the ball at their own 30. I should say at the Patriots 30, and they go right down the field, score a touchdown. They're up 24-14. And Seahawks turning into Seahawks as they go into taunt mode. You see Richard Sherman on the sideline doing the 2-4 taunting Darrelle Revis after the touchdown that was thrown on him, where the referee was used as really a pick on the play. And, Darrelle Revis turns around on the play and looks at the ref like, man, what the heck? But, hey, that's what they're there for. That's what they run those routes for, the receivers do. That's what that's designed for. Well, Seahawks doing their taunting thing, they're up 24-14, and it kind of just goes back and forth for a while until the fourth quarter, where the machine that we were so used to for so many years, and really, even in the Super Bowl losses to the Giants, he was the man. He led them down the field in that first Super Bowl loss when they were undefeated. They got the lead, and if it wasn't for a crazy play by Eli Manning getting away from 2 sacks, just throwing a football up, and David Tyree coming down with one of the craziest catches, well, now probably maybe the number 2 catch of all time in Super Bowl history. Well, probably still up above this one, because the one we'll get to, because they actually won the game, the Giants did. But then after that, you knew the Giants were going to win. They just the Patriots fell apart. You get my point. And they weren't left much time. Brady wasn't left much time to win that Super Bowl. The next Super Bowl, he's doing what he should do. They have the lead. Wes Welker, as most people remember, unfortunately, drops a pass that he would always catch. Giants come down the field, score a touchdown, leave the Patriots minimal time, if any time at all, to score. They win again. Anyway, back to this game. Tom, terrific as they always call him, clutch. 13 of 15 in the fourth quarter, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. Gets the ball back with 12 minutes left on the clock, down 24-14, leads them right down the field. Great play calling, great clock management as well by Josh McDaniels, running about 4 to 5 minutes off the first drive, getting a touchdown. Seahawks get the ball back. Patriots shut him down, make him punt. Oh, Tom Terrific gets the ball back with right under 7 minutes left to go. What does he do? Leads them right down the field again. 8 of 8 on the final drive, 74 yards and a touchdown. 8 of 8, 74 yards and a touchdown on the final drive. Used play calling was just great by Josh McDaniels on there at times. Obviously, being a Bronco fan, as I'll admit time and time again, just didn't see that the greatest of play calling. And now, of course, when you're a head coach, you can't do that. You can't do everything. You can't be the offensive coordinator and the head coach. So it's hard for him to probably showcase all of his offensive coordinating skills when he was at Denver. But just the great calling last night. Of course, he has just the one of the greatest personnels of all time, especially when Tom Brady is leading your team. Just makes everyone around you that much better. Your linemen, your running backs, your wide receivers. Doesn't matter who they are. They're going to make them that much better. So they take the lead, just right down the field. Okay, well, you think, okay, well, they score a touchdown right over 2 minutes left, and that was the thing. What do they do when they got down there? They got down with about 2 minutes, 50 seconds left. It's first and goal. They call a timeout, so they're trying to figure out what to do. Well, they run it just to waste some clock. Then what do you do after that? It's second and goal from about the 2 or 3. If you run it again, you'll waste maybe not chancing the fact that you get in, so it's now third down and goal, and if you don't get in then, you have to kick a field goal to tie the game. Well, you certainly don't want to tie the game being down 24-21. You want to take the lead, so they certainly go ahead and throw it right before the 2-minute warning, getting the touchdown, taking the lead. 2 minutes and 3 seconds left. They're up 28-24. So certainly Seahawks have all their timeouts left. 2-minute warning, plenty of time. So they do. They come right down the field, lo and behold. And then the catch. What leads us to the catch? It's first down from about the 40-yard line. They've drove down to the Patriots' 40, so they're already at the 40 with a minute left. Plenty of time. Throw up a sideline catch. And what's crazy to think about this, remember this name, Malcolm Butler, we'll get to this man in a minute, deflects the ball up in the air. Well, who comes down with it? Kearse, the wide receiver for the Seahawks, comes right down to him. It kind of reminded me of a catch that Antonio Freeman the Packers made against the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football years and years ago. Brett Favre throws it up. Freeman comes down with it. The Vikings actually, though, unfortunately at the time, didn't realize he caught it because it was that crazy of a catch. They weren't that close to him either, that close enough to see him catch it. Freeman gets up and goes to the end zone and scores. It was one of the craziest catches and touchdowns you'd ever seen. Well, about the same thing happened here, except for the Patriots were still right there and kind of pushed him out when he got up. Well, so now it's 1st and goal. You just ran out of bounds. You got about a minute left. Well, what do? Of course, you run it with Marshawn Lynch from the 5-yard line. You get down to the 1. Clocks are rolling. What do the Patriots do? Do you call timeout to leave yourself enough time maybe to score? Or do you just say, no, we're going to stop them. We're going to let it roll down. Hey, we're going to stop them. We're not calling timeouts. And that's what they do. Same with the Seahawks. They're not going to call timeouts. No one wants to stop it. Hey, we're just going to run it from right here. Well, you thought they were going to run it from the 1-yard line. Clocks are running. It's a ticking. Gets under 30 seconds. Almost right at around 30 seconds. And what do they do from the 1? They throw it. They run and you can kind of tell in the formation they were in, they almost weren't going to run it. They run some like if it was in the middle of the first half, I could understand running this play just to run something different. Almost understand it, even like as everyone said, you have Marshawn Lynch. You have beast mode. He just got you 4.5, 5 yards almost to the 1-yard line. No, they don't run it. They run some underneath crossing pick route where the receiver, there's a receiver stacked on top of a receiver, and the first receiver pretty much just runs right into the D-back in front of him. You can't. It's pretty much, that's why I can't believe they don't really even call a penalty on that, because you can't even, when you go back and look at the replay, it doesn't really run much of a route, is my point. Well, Malcolm Butler, who just unfortunately deflected the ball up in the air, causing it to go right to Kearse of the Seahawks for the catch down to the 5-yard line, one of the craziest catches of all time. Was I said if the Seahawks win this game, it would probably be the number 1 or if not number 2 catch of all time in Super Bowl history. Malcolm Butler playing this pick play perfectly. Has no other coverage. There's no other responsibilities around him. So there's no other route. So he doesn't have to worry about anything else. He's about 6 yards off the ball, playing the back receiver, not the top receiver in the stack. There's 2 stacked receivers on the far right. He waits for the guy to run the pick. He sees it immediately, reads Russell Wilson's eyes, makes an amazing play on the ball, and just destroys the receiver, knocks him down to the ground and catching the interception. You think most D-backs, and they probably would, have bobbled it or dropped it. No, right into his hand. He catches it, picks, interception, game over. Wow, one of the craziest endings of all time. Patriots go down to take the lead after being down by 10 in the 4th quarter. Then they give the Seahawks the ball back. They go down the field. You have the craziest catch of one of the craziest catches of all time, not only in Super Bowl history, but in any game. And then the interception to end it. And the fact that they don't run it. That whole scenario. They don't run it, they throw it, and he gets picked. Just wow, one of the craziest finishes of all time in any Super Bowl history. Certainly one of the best games of all time. You got to go back to a few. There's a few of them that always come to mind that I watched over the years. I mean, I can remember go back to about 1990 and forward of watching Super Bowl. So what I've seen with my eyes, one of the first good ones and the best one I saw at the beginning, of course, if you start with 1990, well, there weren't really many good ones until the Broncos and the Packers in 98. Great game. Well, 2 years later, following that up with the Rams and the Titans, the way that ended on the 1-yard line. Pretty much kind of the same scenario almost. And then it kind of, there's other ones in there, but the other one that really sticks out in my mind in there, of course, the Giants and the Patriots, which I mentioned earlier. But the other one would be the Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That back and forth finish to that game, which was pretty crazy too. So just in a phenomenal inning of Super Bowl 49, the Patriots come back. And if you do remember this, I forgot to start this. That was what I forgot to start with, was my prediction. My prediction last week was 27-21, if you want to remember that. 27-21. What was the final score? And I said the Patriots would win. 27-21. Final score, 28-24. So I was 1 point off in one area, 3 in the other. So pretty good. Pretty good. I almost went 28-24 last week because I had a feeling that the Seahawks were going to have to get a field goal somewhere in there too. So I almost did 28-24. I almost did, I should say 27-24. Almost did 27-24, but went 27-21. Final score is 28-24. So pretty good there. Pretty good. So Malcolm Butler, wow, comes out of nowhere. Rookie free agent from Western Alabama. Comes up with the play of the game. Wow, and there was that player scuffle at the end of the Seahawks. Seahawks being Seahawks, that's all I'm going to say about that. But a great game, great finish. One of the best Super Bowls you'll always remember. So there you go, Super Bowl 49. There you go, on deck. How about National Signing Day? National Signing Day, NCAA football. Oh, wow. I mean, what a day it was. Of course, Alabama taking the top. If you didn't see this, taking the top honors in most polls 24/7, which a lot of scouts and analysts use because it kind of takes in effect to what you have on the team, what you're bringing in, what you brought in. It just kind of takes in a lot of different factors, and they do a good job. So Alabama sitting on top of both. Florida State, USC kind of 2 and 3 on other polls. So that's really almost always what you see almost every year anyway. Tennessee kind of making a surprising jump. They're at number 5, right around 5-4 this year. Of course, your LSU's, Ohio State's up there in the top 10. Georgia, Texas, though, they're in the top 10, which is kind of surprising, or was to me, or right around number 10. Biggest jumps, though, of course, gotta mention these two schools, Florida and Michigan. Florida jumps 40 spots, 45 in some polls. They go up to around 20 to 22, somewhere in there, in either poll, from around 65 to 70. They luckily got huge commits on Wednesday of last week, National Signing Day, which we'll get into here in just the commits here in just a few minutes, just kind of rounding out these teams. In Michigan, they jumped about 35 spots. They went from around the 70 mark to around 35 to 40. So they jump around 30 to 35 to get to about the 35 to 40 range. Michigan does. Harbaugh coming in, and they only got 14 commits, but they got a couple of key 4-star signees and a transfer. Actually, a quarterback out of Houston that'll be transferring. He wants to play, of course, under Harbaugh. It's going to keep being that way, and you can see. Let me tell you something right now. Michigan's going to be a powerhouse once again. And that was huge of them getting Harbaugh back. I thought Harbaugh was going to stay in the NFL. More money, he'd already make a name for himself. You went to 2-3 NFC straight championship games. So hey, you're in an NFC championship game back-to-back years, if not 3. I mean, you know what you're doing in the NFL. So I think you kind of just missed the college, the fun of it. I think you'll come do this at Michigan for about 5 to 7 years. Try to win a national championship, if not more, and then go back to the pros. Back to Florida, though, they won. Like I said, they picked up a couple of 5-star commits. We'll get to one of the guys that are teeter-tottering in a minute. One of them, certainly, let's get into this first one. Number 1 overall prospect, Byron Cowart. He finally is an Auburn Tiger. Well, it took about 7 hours on National Signing Day for this to happen, to finally fulfill his honors of being an Auburn Tiger. But after conflicting reports, miscommunication, and some weird, unusual behavior at times, one of the most bizarre stories, of course, on National Signing Day, the number 1 ranked prospect on ESPN's 300 list, he announced on television Wednesday morning that he would be playing for Auburn. Well, 3 hours later, reports surfaced that he had in fact sent his letter of intent. His high school head coach said that he arrived at school with 2 signed forms, one for Auburn and one for Florida. Coach was given explicit instruction not to fax in either of them until he was given the go-ahead from the family. Well, it was finally provided, or I should say, Cowart then provided a different version of events later, saying he had only signed 1 letter of intent to Auburn and was just there waiting to fax it in to make sure his heart is there. So I don't understand that. And around 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 Central, Auburn confirmed that it received the signed letter of intent. And what made it all more odd and confusing was when he responded to all the questions about that whole decision and what had happened throughout the day. And he answered everyone confidently, never appeared to waver in his decision. It was always Auburn. Never was it Florida. And I don't understand why the head coach would ever lie about supposedly giving instruction not to send in the fax of letter intent, and he had 2 different ones signed. So that was a strange story. But yes, the number 1 overall prospect on ESPN's list, Byron Cowart, is now an Auburn Tiger, which is huge. C.C. Jefferson, kind of thinking about maybe going to Auburn, goes to Florida. And this one still isn't decided. So the 5-star defensive end, he was friends with Byron Cowart, C.C. Jefferson, and he was number 9 ranked on the overall 300 list on ESPN, had committed to Florida over Alabama, Auburn, and Ole Miss on National Signing Day. It appeared that the Gators had locked up 2, and they did lock up 2 of the 3 top prospects in the Sunshine State. Number 1 ranked offensive tackle, Martez Ivey. They already got this guy earlier in the day, too, so that was a huge pickup for Florida. Well, fast forward 24 hours, and Jefferson still hadn't faxed in his letter of intent. And according to the father, they're still thinking about the decision. And he said, no, we're not sending it in yet, the father said. CC is still thinking about it. He wants time to think about it. Well, then rumors start circulating that Jefferson has cold feet caused by the defensive lineman that recruited him, Terrell Williams. He left to go to the Miami Dolphins for a new job. Well, so now this delay. Well, of course, it reported the Gainesville Sun reported the day after that his dad's pissed about it, doesn't want him actually even to go to Gainesville, and said, no, sir, and he's not going to. You tell the Gainesville Sun that he isn't going to fax it in, I won't let him. End quote. Now the latest tweet as of Saturday afternoon that C.C. Jefferson tweeted on his Twitter account from him, I am a Gator, and my LOI, which is letter of intent, will be turned in soon, and my dad and Coach Collins had a long talk today. So we'll see what exactly happens with Florida McElwain, the new head coach down there. Huge. Got, I think 16 of the 21 commits, was responsible for 16 of the 21 commits, including getting four-star athlete DeAnthony McGriff and running back Jordan Cronkite. Huge commits from Florida, going from around 70th overall to about 20th. Number 14, another big story, number 14th overall wide receiver on the ESPN, their number 14th overall wide receiver, Cordell Brodus. I think it was around number 50, 150th overall. Cordell Brodus, that would be Snoop Dogg, Snoop Double Jizzle. Yes, that's right. His son, when they have the show on ESPN, I've watched a couple of the episodes. It's pretty decent. And his process throughout of his his high school year, where he goes to Bishop Gorman. His dad transferred him to this Las Vegas school that is just a powerhouse. They've won 6 in a row upon him arriving. Now they've won their 7th in a row. I'm pretty sure it's 6 and then 7 that they've won this year in a row now. Brodus, was ranked 130th overall on ESPN 300, and he ended up committing. His dad, Snoop Dogg, huge USC fan. Grew up in Southern California and LA, around that area, of course. Loves it was always Southern Cal over UCLA and over any school. It was always USC, and showed huge signs, and always has, in trying to sway in his son going to USC. And it came down to USC, actually Arizona State, and UCLA, and one of his best friends, actually, that he's known for a while, is going to UCLA, one of his football teammates. So he ends up going and picking UCLA. So he's going to UCLA. He'll be a Bruin this coming season. So we'll have to keep up with Cordell Brodus and see his transfer. He's a 6'2", 192-pound wide receiver. So he's definitely got some size, got pretty good speed. I didn't see his 40 on there, and I don't like going by. I like to see like next year what the team puts out, even though it's always kind of loaded. And when I say loaded, it's not what it should be. It's a little lower, so to speak, than it should be. I could see him though running around the 4.5 range. Well, got a new host. That's about the end of recruiting. Any other names you want me to talk about, give me a shout. I'll look into them as much as I can, and I'll certainly find you some news on any of these recruits. There's plenty out there to go over, but anything you want me to look up, I'll find any. I know tons of recruiting guys out there. We can talk about anyone, but certainly when you get into the new host, which I'm kind of swaying about, which I always sway about when you have change and with something you're used to, and that would be the new host of ESPN's College Game Day. Chris Fowler, you're probably used to seeing his face all over ESPN and college football, and he's done college football game day since 1990, of course, when it first inaugural season. Well, we'll have a new one. Reese Davis is now taking over. Last season, he became ESPN's lead Chris Fowler did. He became ESPN's lead play-by-play announcer for college football, replacing Brent Musburger. So that meant sometimes hosting College Game Day in one location in the morning and traveling to another site for ABC Saturday Night Football, their big game, in another site or location. Analyst Kirk Herbstreit does the same. I know he's younger. I don't understand. My point being, I don't know why. And they pointed out that Chris Fowler wanted to continue to do both roles, but you know how ESPN does. They say, no, we want to make a show, whatever. And they have Reese Davis coming in. And he's even as SVP. I was listening to SVP and Russillo the other day talking about Chris Fowler and his punctuality, the way he worded stuff, and the fact that he doesn't even use a teleprompter. He has note cards he does pretty much up until the night of the show, or I should say up until the show, literally from the night, I'm sure the week through, up until the night before, all the way literally said till about 5 a.m. that morning until right before the show starts. He's doing note cards, and he'll sometimes, which you'll never see him hardly look down, and that's what he said, he hardly refers to those, but he has no teleprompter. And me, someone who has actually done a teleprompter before, not only run it for school, hosted a couple different shows before, and then helped out on, of course, different TV stations. I know what it's like reading a teleprompter, and it makes things a lot easier. It makes things awesome once you get used to it, especially when you do it as long as he's done it. That's why it makes him seem so easy, that it's at ease for him. He's making it look like he's just sleeping and doing it. With no teleprompter, though, now that he has no teleprompter, no little TV screen in front of him, in a teleprompter, just so you know what those things look like when you kind of see it from their angle, because you don't really get to. You kind of see it when they show the big screen set, when they show the camera. My point being, they have the camera view of the whole set. They'll show the set, the big cameras. Well, what they're looking at in those big cameras, the top part is like a TV. It shows them what's going on a lot of the time. Then the bottom part is the teleprompter, or vice versa. point being, they have what's going on, what they're looking at, and the screen, as in what the words are in front of them. So they can see what's going on, and then they have words right below them, so they're reading along right with it. Or vice versa, if there's nothing to look at and it's on them, as in the screen, it's just on them, and they're just reading something. They're literally just reading something. And it's something usually that they wrote. Makes things a lot easier. Not only did you write it, so you know what you've wrote and you've written, and it's going to be right there in front of you. Point being, my gosh, made things look so easy, and I just had to explain that for you. Just teleprompters make things a lot easier, and the fact that Chris Fowler didn't use a teleprompter was just, that's amazing. So, hate to see him go. I know Reese Davis does a great job and will do a great job. He's been with the company since 1995, but we'll have to get used to him. Reese Davis will no longer do the Thursday night games that he's been doing for the last few years, but of course now he's going to have to get used to doing what Chris Fowler's done, and we'll see how he does, and I'm sure he'll do just fine because he's been doing pretty much that at a different level, back in the studio or out on for the SEC network. So be no big loss in as far as, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Certainly Reese Davis will fill those shoes just fine, but it'll just be a different tone or a different aspect. And Chris Fowler just always just kind of, I guess it's just that old school thing you're used to. I feel like a 50-year-old man now, just, oh man, I don't want to see him go. But we'll see plenty of Chris Fowler as well. Just a little change for College Game Day. Of course, they got to keep Lee Corso. That's the thing, too. Kirk Herbstreit. They just kind of the tandem. Kirk Herbstreit kind of knows when to calm Lee Corso down. So they'll keep Lee for a little bit longer. That's the other thing I was going to mention. Just don't know how much longer Lee, Mr. Corso, not so fast, my friend, is going to last. College football, a little bit more news here. Coach B, everyone, Arkansas, a lot of news there. Of course, I'm sure they know about this. Coach Bielema, Brett Bielema, head coach of Arkansas, was rewarded with a 2-year extension on what he had already that will put him in the $4 million club now. Got him a little raise on top of the fact, so it's a new overall 6-year deal that will run through 2020. His average annual total compensation will be about $4.25 million. He'll earn about $4 million in 2015 with $100,000 increases in each year after that. Additionally, Bielema will now be eligible for athletic and academic achievement incentives totaling up to $1 million per year. So Bielema bringing in some heavy money, and he's done great since he's been there. He's a great coach, showed great progress, and certainly over the last couple of years with Arkansas, you see what he did at Wisconsin, just racking up wins after 10-win season after 10-win season there. But with Arkansas this year, finished 7-6, including the 31-7 win over Texas in the Advocare Texas Bowl. Won 4 of their last 6 games, including shutting out, being one of the first team, or being the first team, first unranked. I can't even get this out. Arkansas became the first unranked team in college football history to shut out back-to-back ranked opponents after they blanked number 20 LSU and number 8 Ole Miss. So an unranked team back-to-back weeks, if you don't remember this, shut out ranked teams. First time that's ever happened back-to-back weeks. I think it's happened in the same season before, but not back-to-back weeks. And that was forever ago. Being an Arkansas fan, I remember they brought it up. I forgot what year it was, but it was a long time ago. And then their 5 losses this year, and 5 of them, of course they have 6 losses. They ended up with 6, but 5 of their losses were by a touchdown or less. So 5 of your 6 losses, you're in it. You're in the game. We should have, and I always say that as a fan, I mean should have, would have, could have, but should have and could have easily beaten Alabama. Barely lost to them. A couple of them at number 1, Mississippi State at the time. Barely lost to them. So they were in some great games this year against great teams. So we'll see how Bielema and the Razorbacks do. Certainly seem as if they are on the upward trend. Next year bringing back great talent. Offensive line, you have 2 of the best backs, not only in the SEC, but the nation, and Alex Collins, Jonathan Williams. So certainly good year, looking like the 2015 season could be pretty good for the Razorbacks, improving upon their Texas Advocare Bowl this year. Tiger Woods on deck. You're on deck, Tiger. My, oh my, oh my. For the 3rd time in the past 9 worldwide starts, Woods had to withdraw from a tournament due to a back problem. That's just ridiculous. And after talking with him just last or a couple weeks ago, I shouldn't say after I talked with him, but just listening to all the interviews he was given after the Phoenix Open 2 weeks ago, just 10 days ago, about 10, 11, 12 days ago. So much optimism for the 2015 season he had. Even though he missed the cut, shot an 82, showed no signs of his back hurting, not bending over and picking up the tee or a ball awkwardly, nothing. All that good vibe has been replaced with dark clouds and doubt. I mean, he went from looking good, making a joke after Richard Sherman week before last. I'm just here so I won't get fined. I'm just here to do interviews so I won't get fined. Kind of what Marshawn Lynch did for the Super Bowl media days. Well, after all that fun talk, he's back to what we've seen in last year. And I just don't get it. 2013, won 5. I think it was 5 wins, 6 wins. I think it was 5 wins. I'm pretty sure. Won Player of the Year. All right, Tigers back on track. That's why we thought 2014 was the year we were finally going to see another major victory. Improve upon the 5 wins at least from the year before. Maybe even at least get 5 wins again, showing that he's at least back upon consistent. Because that's what he hasn't shown lately. He can show us that he's back. He'll come back and look great at times for it maybe a tournament. Or like he did in 2013 at times. But now it's just back to what we want to say, almost same old Tiger. What we've seen since the unfortunate incident with his wife. I mean, and I hate it for him. It's like he doesn't have, and that's the thing. I wish he would get, I know that's what a lot of the, you read in the articles or what people are saying, just get healthy. Is he actually healthy? Well, I think he's healthy at times. I don't know if this is fake. A lot of times it seems like, I'm not doing that great, which he wasn't. He was only 1 or 2 over when he started doing the back thing. It wasn't like he was like, oh gosh, here we go. It wasn't like he was 5, 6, 7 over. So we'll see what happens with Tiger. I don't understand. If he's not, of course, we don't know what Tiger's going through. If he's really healthy, I don't know why though he would put himself back in harm's way if he wasn't completely healthy. You would figure if he was playing in these tournaments, he gave himself plenty of time off, even into this year. That's why I figured he was waiting to play in these back-to-back tournaments. He waited. He gave himself into the couple. What was it? Almost the last week of January and the first week of February. The first couple of the first week tournament in February. He was going to say, hey, okay, let's give it a shot. 2 weeks in a row. That was the other thing I felt. He needed to play more often. Okay, so that was maybe his point of view. Hey, let's get into playing a little bit more often, get in the swing of things. Especially, he wasn't the Tiger of old. The Tiger of old could go out there at any time. He could literally cold turkey go out there. Oh, I hadn't played in how long? Let me just go out and shoot a 65, 67, 71, and 68 and win the tournament. Tiger can't do that anymore. He needs to get out and play more often. He needs to get used to the competition. It's just crazy to think that he's lost that mental edge as well. I've mentioned before last week, he doesn't have his father around. People don't want to get into that. I don't know if it's just a iffy subject. I'm certainly I would bring it up. I'd love to ask him the question one day. I would say, Tiger, do you feel as if you're not near as confident that you don't have your father around anymore? You don't feel you have the mental capability or capacity that you used to, someone to go to after a tournament and talk, speak with, converse with, get back to just some basics that your dad even taught you. And that's what I think he needs to do. He needs to get rid of all these goofy coaches he's going through, even the new one. I thought he was just going to be Tiger and just say, hey, I know what I'm doing. I've kind of won a couple of tournaments. I'm going to go out there and do what I want to do and go get back to my swing I had as a child. Just kind of go, like a free swing, really. Maybe, if anything, kind of have a couple of basics that you learned along the way from Harmon and Haney, but it doesn't seem as if he wants to get back with either one of them, which I figure and I think that he would understand, hey, I need to rekindle one of those relationships. This may help me. So far, not so fast, not so much, my friend. So we'll see how Tiger decides to take his path, how hurt he is, how long he decides to sit out, when he comes back, if he's healthy, 100% healthy when he comes back. And he needs to just take it easy on the swing and everything. Go back to the basics that he did with Harmon, before 97, 98, 99, just basic stuff. Then maybe add a couple technical things you learned from Harmon and Haney after those years. Like I said, we'll see exactly. He just wants to make so much technical changes, and I know golfers do that. I know other great golfers in the past have done that. They've made swing changes. You kind of have to understand at some point in times because you're getting older. Maybe, hey, I can't make that swing anymore. I'm not as good with that swing. I can't make that swing. I'm not playing that good with that swing. I need to change it to where my body's getting older. I can only make this kind of swing type, sort of thing. That's why I just refer to other sports. Peyton Manning doesn't decide. You get my point. Tom Brady, Joe Montana, John Elway, they say, I'm not going to I think I want to throw the ball a little differently now. I think I want to set my feet a little different. I know they may be working on mechanics every once in a while, but it's not like not a whole swing change. Same with Michael Jordan. I don't think he said, I'm going to shoot the ball a little differently. He'll go out there and he'll get his shot down and work on a shot, but he's not changing his whole shot arc and the way he shoots it. I don't think that was ever one of his key ingredients. I don't think Wayne Gretzky's ever like, I got to work on the way I shoot this puck. You just go out there and it comes naturally. What came naturally to you and how the swing, like Faldo the other day, I was listening to him when they were talking about Tiger and because he gave some goofy, weird explanation in his swing plane and with chips, something that's just right there, not a whole swing, just little chips. And Faldo and someone else, but it came back to Faldo, but someone else was just like pretty much bullshit. I mean BS, bullshit. And same with Faldo. He's like, are you serious? No, it's a chip. You chip. You're natural. You figure it out. You go out there, you chip. You figure out how you want to, it's all feely touchy. You go out there and you chip. You don't go, I got this swing plan. No. I mean, yeah, and that's what he was saying. Yeah, if there's like a bush in your way or a limb or a tree, yeah, then you kind of have to alter it, but not the way Tiger makes it seem. Tiger, get back to basics. Peyton Manning, take a pay cut. Peyton Manning, take a pay cut. Just NFL talk again. Peyton Manning, take a pay cut. Yeah, you do need $19 million next year. How much have I told you? What was it last week? $240 million. $230 million before any of your endorsements. You made $230 million, Peyton Manning. Of course, I know you've had to pay bills along the way, this, that, and the other. So what? Okay, so maybe you've only grossed. Just even say crazily after your crazy gambling problem you have $100 million that you've grossed over the years. And you've been able to come on. What after you? I don't even. That's a ridiculous number. That means you spent $130 million, which I'm sure you've spent maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 million. Maybe you're Peyton Manning. You seem pretty smart. Anyway, Peyton, take a pay cut next year. Get your pay. You need a pay cut, please. $19 million. You just. I mean, even 10, 15 million. Give the team $5, $10 million to work with. I'd be happy. I wish you don't be like John Elway and play for free like he did his last couple of years. It's about the Super Bowl, isn't it? So you can sign all these extra players. Do I have to mention again, John Elway made less than $1 million. Pretty much played for free. I think it was, I forgot what it was. It was ridiculous. It was like $500,000 John Elway played for his final year. $500,000. John Elway made $500,000 last year. Y'all, can you believe that, people? $500,000. John Elway made $500,000 right around there. After taxes, I'm sure it was less than that. His last year, because they wanted to sign more players. He wanted them to sign more players. He already won a Super Bowl. He wanted to go back to back that bad. Peyton, Jamal. Let's get into some NBA news, at least for now, for the time being, if we could. NBA. How about the Clippers? Blake, there's big news this yesterday. Clippers star Blake Griffin out. Got a staph infection. I guess he's been fighting stuff for a while. I didn't know he's had elbow bursitis he's been dealing with throughout his career. Has to get it drained. That's just crazy to think, unfortunately. And it was most recently on February the 2nd when he got it drained, and it just seemed kind of weird. So went in for more of an evaluation. And he'll get reevaluated anyway. Went in for an evaluation, and yep, sure enough, got to go get some surgery done, which will happen actually today to remove the staph infection and be really reevaluated after the All-Star break. No timetable official yet, but looks like anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks he'll be out. Big blow for the Clippers, certainly for Blake Griffin. Get better, man. And then Chris Paul on top of the fact. Let's more Clipper talk. $25,000 fine for his public criticism of official ref. Lauren, the ref, whatever you want to call her, Lauren Holtkamp, the first-year referee who called the technical the other night on the Los Angeles Clippers star point guard. If you didn't see it, they were kind of losing. It wasn't a close game really at the time. I mean, they were down, not where they were planning to get back into the game unless a crazy comeback was about to emerge. Trying to get the ball in fast. She said, he tried to get the ball in fast. She made some kind of remark. You could tell, no. And he was just already heated from losing and just wasn't in the best of moods anyway. And it really was just kind of a goofy little incident. And here's what Chris Paul had to say about it. He said, some of the technical fouls were ridiculous. The tech that I get right there was ridiculous. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care what she says. That's terrible. There's no way that can be a tech. We try to get the ball out fast every time down the court. And when we did that, she said, I said, why, And she gave me a tech. That's ridiculous. If that's the case, this might not be for her. That was straight from his mouth, a quote after the game when he was asked about it. So I don't understand, like I said, the whole what exactly happened. He was trying to get the ball in with there was another person there. I don't know if it was Deion Jordan. I forgot who the other person where he was trying to get the ball in too. And he was trying to get the ball as well. They were both trying to take the ball out, and they were trying to do it real fast. And then she said, And I don't know exactly, and literally, I guess maybe that's all what was said, because you couldn't tell that he was like, F you, or he didn't get into her face. He literally, that's what he was trying to describe. Literally, supposedly she said, that you can't do that, and he said, why, And boom, then there was a tech given, and what was crazy on top of the fact, the whole Clippers bench reacts, and that's why even analysts have kind of said because she was infamous for giving one of the worst calls of the year so far. It was earlier this year. It was a terrible call on DeMarcus Cousins. So we'll see how this unfolds with her and how much longer she may be in the league, if she has to, maybe gets demoted to D-League or goes back to go into another, obviously, league or, the WNBA or go back to college. But you couldn't tell much happened. Literally, it was just they were trying to inbound the ball. I guess a couple of uh-uhs were exchanged, and then there was a technical given, and it was right by the Clippers bench, and they erupted. They were pissed, to say the least. Some last Friday night, there were some huge games. It was we'll get into the big game that there was. Pacers, though, did stop the Cavs' 12-game win streak, which Pacers are just kind of not that great this year, not the Pacers of past years. So the point that they won is the reason to bring this up, and they stopped the Cavs' 12-game win streak. And they rallied late to win 103-99, and the Cavs only had 15 points in the third quarter. That's it. 15 points in one quarter, not so hot, my friends. So that stopped their win streak. That they did get back on top yesterday. The Cavaliers did get a big win yesterday, beating up. I forgot who they beat up on. I even watched the game. But the big game, though, on Friday night was the battle of the top teams in each conference. Warriors-Hawks. Who's going to win? A lot of people are saying maybe a preview of the NBA Finals, but a lot of people think the Hawks can't sustain a 7-game series against anyone and win 4 of those games. But we'll see, because they are looking pretty tough this year. They beat the Warriors 124-116 and really didn't waver throughout. It wasn't like they got down and had to come back. They looked good the whole time. And it doesn't get much easier as guess what? They had to play the Memphis Grizzlies last night. And the Grizzlies ended up with a great win. Of course, it was at home for Memphis, but still, didn't get much easier. They had to play the two top teams in a row in the Western Conference. I'm sure when the season started, it wasn't set out to be that way, as in they didn't figure it was going to be 1-2 back-to-back games. But it was. They beat the top team in the conference 124-116, Golden State, on Friday night. And then the Hawks had to go, as I said, to Memphis, and they unfortunately, I think it was like 20-game win or 19-game win streak was finally snapped as they lost to the Grizzlies 94-88. And the Grizzlies really, you could kind of tell they were hungry. Point being, they lost Friday night to the Timberwolves, lowly Timberwolves, in a 1-point shocker, 90-89. The Grizzlies lost. So you could tell they were kind of pissed off losing to the Timberwolves on Friday night. They were going to ready to play and knock off the Atlanta Hawks and end and stun their win streak, which it wasn't much of a stunner. It was just pretty much after the game you could tell, okay, both these teams are ready to roll. Both these teams are real. It wasn't a blowout game where one team got up on the other. You can tell both these teams are real and will be teams to reckon with when it comes playoff time. And I think the Hawks make it to the I went to the NBA Finals. I was going to say I think the Hawks make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, not the NBA Finals. We'll see, though. They might, but I think they make it at least to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Cavs. We'll see, though. I like my chances on that one. We'll see how that turns out. Mostly, I'm sure a lot of people see the Bulls making a run. Obviously the Cavs are going to be up there in the East, but that's it. The West, it's going to be. There's a lot of teams in the West that can make a run. I mean, that's what Golden State they're talking about the other night. If Golden State wins out in their conference and they're number 1 seed right now, it's looking like maybe the Thunder end up being maybe an 8 seed unless they make a run. Imagine that. The Golden State Warriors, you're the number 1 seed. You think, okay, well, the number 1 seed, we get to play the number 8 seed. Yay, we get to kind of have an easy first round. Not if you're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, you won't. So won't be much of a bye, so to speak, for them. They'll definitely have to play, maybe even 7 games in their first series, which then you play 7 games, maybe another team only plays 5. You see what I'm saying? That's less. Your legs aren't near as fresh. Certainly more than enough time to. On deck, though, we have to get to the story of the week. Dean Smith, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Coaching innovator who won 2 national championships at North Carolina. He also won an Olympic gold medal in '76. Was inducted to Basketball's Hall of Fame more than a decade before he even left the bench, before he was done coaching. Unfortunately, he passed late Saturday night in peace. The great coach was 83. Won 20 games in each. Listen to this fact. North Carolina, while coaching, Dean Smith won at least 20 games in each of his final 27 seasons. His last 27 seasons, every year they won 20 or more. And in his last 23 seasons, they made the NCAA tournament. So 23 straight appearances in the NCAA tournament. His last 27 seasons, 20 or more wins. Wow. Phenomenal consistency, numbers. He only had one losing season in 36 at UNC. He was at UNC 36 seasons. He had one losing season. Guess when? His very first. 8-9, to think they only played 17 games. That is pretty funny. 8-9 was his record in 1961-62 season. Along the way, more than 95% of his lettermen graduated. 95%. It was like 95. It was almost 96. It was like 95 point something. He was the direct coaching descendant of basketball's father, the creator of the game, James Naismith. How exactly? Well, he played and later coached at Kansas for the innovator of the game's most famous student. James Naismith's most famous student was Coach Phog Allen. If you know Allen Fieldhouse, that's where the Jayhawks play their basketball. Let me tell you a little bit about Phog Allen if you didn't know about even Phog Allen. No, you know about James Naismith, the creator of the game. Well, here's Phog Allen for you. Here's his record. 50 seasons, compiled 746 wins, and only 264 losses. Retiring at his time with the most wins of all time, as Dean Smith later would do. He also began classes at the University of Kansas in 1904. Here we go, where he lettered 3 years in basketball under Naismith. He also served as the head football coach, football, at Warrensburg Teachers College from 1912 to 1917, and at Kansas for one season in 1920. Coached at Kansas. He amassed a college football record of 34-19-3. 34-19-3. Heck, he could have been a college football coach if he wanted to. Of course, that's a thing back then. That's what you think about how funny. Weren't near as many people, literally people to contend against the jobs. You get what I'm saying? So you could pretty much do what you wanted. You could do a lot of jobs back then if you were good at it. He also coached baseball. How about this? Coached baseball at Kansas for 2 seasons. Coached football, baseball, and basketball. Coached 2 seasons in 41 and 42. Didn't have the greatest of record in baseball. 6-17-1, but still was an athletic director there as well from 1919 and 1937. So athletic director at Kansas for around 20 years. Baseball coach for a couple years. Football coach for a year. Basketball coach for 50 years. Phog Allen did a lot of stuff for Kansas. There's your little lesson on Phog Allen, which leads me back to Dean Smith. Would pass all those lessons he learned at Kansas along the way at North Carolina, adding more than a few of his own. Of course, taught maybe the best player of all time, which is the best player of all time. I just said maybe, but he is the best player of all time. Michael Jordan went on to coach him, of course, in the national championship in 1982. 2 of the coach's most successful successors of him, here they are. How about Larry Brown? Ever heard of Larry Brown? Maybe Roy Williams, those 2. 2 of his most famous coaches that learned underneath Dean Smith. And more than 50 players went on to play professionally in the NBA and ABA and overseas under Dean Smith's tutelage. James Worthy, of course I mentioned Jordan, Charlie Scott, Walter Davis, Sam Perkins, Brad Daugherty, J.R. Reed, Jerry Stackhouse, Rasheed Wallace, Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson, just to name a few. And besides Larry Brown and Roy Williams, a couple other coaches with successful coaching careers that had major tutelage under Dean Smith, George Karl and Eddie Fogler. I'm sure you've heard of both of those guys. Certainly George Karl, who's up for now almost, I think it's the Sacramento Kings coaching position. I just saw that the other day on ESPN. So George Karl back in most likely in the coaching world once again in the NBA. Straight from Jordan's Twitter account. If you knew Jordan, you knew he was this close, but this was straight from Jordan. Other than my parents, no one had a bigger influence on my life than Coach Smith. He was more than a coach. He was my mentor, my teacher, my second father. Coach was always there for me whenever I needed him, and I loved him for it. And teaching me the game of basketball, he taught me about life. That was what Michael Jordan had to say. Roy Williams had, ambassador for the game, along many other things. He said many people obviously coming out, speaking the words about one of the most famous coaches, one of the most influential coaches of all time, and Dean Smith, the great, great coach that I loved, and that's why I loved UNC, of course, because Michael Jordan went there, but I loved him in the 90s. That was my other team. I love the Razorbacks, but I love the Tar Heels. Once again, Dean Smith, Saturday night, dies at the age of 83. Here's your story of the week, though. Little somber note this week, but I had to touch on a man that touched many, many, many lives. On deck, Josh Smith, thank you for listening. Week after Super Bowl edition. Next week we'll get into a few different topics. We'll touch up, of course, on always the late breaking news, anything that may pop up in the next week. Anything you want to hear, you want to talk about, you want to know about maybe some recruits that I didn't mention, just kind of briefly touch on those. Anything else you want to, write me, email me, don't care how you want to get a hold of me. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Josh A. Smith 7, the website, joshsmithsports.com. That's where you'll find this and many, many other great stories, topics, podcasts on deck. Josh Smith, I'm out.